Dynamite Download.
Dynamite Download, your home for all positive coverage on all elite wrestling.
Cut a promo like the DMD. They're a very
download, you guys. Positive energy. You have a great
January recruitment month for the
along, I come along in the
well, actually, I did see that, and I was thinking,
tired of the cold spray. Tired of the cold spray.
I went to the back to do an interview with those guys. You know why? Because they spread positivity about AEW.
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
Scissor me, Daddy Craig! Everybody in
E
AEW Nation is scissoring this week. This is a huge week. We got our shirts.
just in time.
Yeah, we are
in the mail.
We are ecstatic about, again, a big victory for homegrown AEW talents. And my God, was that pop for those guys insane?
Well deserved. I can't wait
awesome.
to talk about this one, man. The Acclaimed coming out victorious on this, but 4 hours of AEW television in the last 48 hours have been pretty stacked, that's for sure. And we're going to dive in. We're not going to be able to cover it all, but it's going to be a journey with us for sure.
Absolutely.
So of all that, do you think Grand Slam was a hit, a miss, better than expected, or what did you think about it?
I mean, I think it's somewhere in between for me, right? I think that you and I we're going to get into some of the reasons why not an absolute home run Grand Slam for me. But, I do think that AEW has done a really nice job of, again, given the circumstances of everything that's happened post All Out, right? Yeah. Pivoting where they could and making the best out of a bad situation. And for that, I mean, the fact that this show, these shows were as stacked as they were, I think this again goes back to the point that, although there are some tough, challenging circumstances right now when it comes to some of the key members of this roster.
Yeah.
The talent level in AEW's roster is so deep. And this week was a really great example of that, right? Didn't feel like anybody was missing. Felt like we were spoiled with a lot of great talent, a lot of great matchups. I do feel like I'm getting a little bit of a championship fatigue, right?
We've talked about that for sure.
It does make me a little bit reserved and there's only every match has got a belt, right? So there's a lot of that, a lot of championships going on here. But that said, the talent involved in those matches, you can't really complain when you're seeing some of these matchups that we get, right?
On free TV.
Right, exactly right. So what about you, man? What did you think?
I was definitely very, very pumped for the 2-night show. I was it's tough Friday nights. We do our show. We've done shows Friday nights, but to, watch wrestling 11 to 12 on Friday. I mean, the timing I get on the magnitude of it being such a special show to have that extra hour of wrestling, which I'm happy for, but it can be challenging as a fan to fight through that if you're watching it live.
Yeah.
But this Dynamite, was one of the ones I was most excited for. And I was like, every match had some belt on the line, which yes, okay, all these talents deserve to get that extra spotlight, but do they really need it? Some people do need that belt to kind of maybe put that stamp of approval on how great they are, not mid, as someone likes to say. But some of these feuds don't need it. Like I've talked in the past, the Young Bucks feuding with another Lucha Brothers, in the past where there wasn't the belt and they did have a good feud with the belt. I was happy overall. Yes, of course. Very, very feel-good moments for me. I mean, my guy Chris Jericho. Let's
featured
start with that.
I mean, featured a lot of favorites, and that was one of the positives, right? Coming out of this, and I have to say, did feature a lot of my favorites, a lot of your favorites. I got to see Pac. You got to see Jericho, which we're going to get into right now.
We got to have a scissor party.
We had to have a scissor party. A lot of great talents. You can know that I've been even that match was a bit bittersweet for me because I do love Swerve in Our Glory. So
it's like a double-edged sword, which we'll dive into about that. But
a lot of talent, and let's acknowledge the talent and display in this first match we're going to talk about. I mean, Jericho Those of you who have been plugged in on Twitter, some of you have seen, Chris Jericho now, along with, I know we're not supposed to say his name, but along with CM Punk, now a man who can stake claim to having ROH gold along with AEW, WCW, and WWE World Heavyweight Championships. So only two men in professional wrestling history can stake claim to that.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
The
Ocho for Jericho. You had to be beaming. I mean, that's genuinely one of your favorite wrestlers of all time. Pretty cool moment for him, and I think somewhat unexpected, right? I mean, Claudio, this was his 5th title defense, I believe it was. So Claudio certainly embodies the brand of ROH a little bit more than Jericho, but that's actually kind of a cool part of why Jericho fits as champ, right?
I loved how, if you did watch those 2 hours of Rampage, Jericho talked about it the whole time about how dare anyone have a low blow and do these things, and pure class. I bring it, the honor to Ring of Honor, and just like leaning into that so much. It was a lot of fun to hear that extra level of Jericho's heel.
Of course,
you would like that.
Yeah, know it.
I mean, I think the chemistry was there, and the match was really good, and I was surprised by the finish. Honestly, even though Jericho did cheat to win in fashion, I'm happy for him. The celebration that we're going to get this next week, the celebration we got a little bit after Dynamite. I mean, you said it best. Like, we want to be in the Jericho Appreciation Society because it looks like a fun group.
I would love
Give us a taste. Give us more than a taste
of
the Jericho Appreciation Society, because we want in.
Yeah.
And we'll stop scissoring to get a
taste. There's so many amazing groups in AEW, and I think the Jericho Appreciation Society has really given us a lot of great moments as far as pure entertainment go.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see Jericho getting this run. I mean, I remember when this group was formed, one of the things when I talked about was, man, like, Jericho's putting in some incredible work right now. He's in some of the best shape he's ever been in. Clearly hilarious, able to pivot from character to character, really, in his personas, from Lionheart to the Wizard. The guy has so many tricks up his sleeve.
Unbelievable.
But, when this group started, I remember you and I talking about, like, man, we'd love to see Jericho get another world title run, right? We would love to see Jericho get another opportunity with the belt, have that big stage. And although this is not the AEW world title, this is the ROH world title. And I do think that Tony Khan and AEW certainly have plans for ROH. And I think maybe that's why Jericho is stepping in here as the ROH world champion. If you go back to, Jericho is the first AEW world champion, right? So, there's clearly they recognize Jericho is gold, right? His name, his just pure class, all this stuff that we've gone through recently as fans of AEW with the CM Punk and the Elite drama. Who's been that constant, right? It's been Jericho. Really,
and Mox.
Jericho and Moxley have been the two leaders, and Danielson has been named. But I mean, I looked at, even when in that AEW media scrum, right, when Jericho kind of took Tony and said, hey, man, we got something going on backstage. You can tell Jericho is the godfather of this company, right? I mean, he's a guy that Tony turns to and trusts. He's in the adult in the room. The man has been there. He's been all over the world.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this industry that this man hasn't seen. When it comes to backstage fights, he's been involved in them, right? The man knows the ins and outs of this industry, and he kind of has that presence that you can bank on. Jericho is going to be a guy you can turn to, you can lean on, you can trust. And I think as Tony wants to start to build this ROH brand, you start looking at the champions, right? Like, Jericho is your world champion. FTR are your tag team champions. I mean,
Garcia, Samoa
Joe. I mean, that's a hell of a list of champions if you just rattle those off, right? So with Jericho at the top now, kind of with that sports entertainer vibe, that over-the-top personality, somebody who you can turn to make sure you get those ratings if you're trying to get a TV program for ROH. And then you also have some of those guys in the background that you can go in and deliver high-quality content in the ring.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong, man. I thought this was great stuff. It does make me wonder, Jericho Appreciation Society now with Daniel Garcia kind of breaking away, it seems like
I don't
a
know.
little
There's
bit.
still some turmoil in that for sure. We'll find out at the celebration.
Champions going head to head would be interesting for me. I would be really intrigued, but
it'll be, yeah, you kind of hinted at that. Like Garcia had something to say, but he was like, no, wait till the celebration. We got to talk about it in the ring. You know, nothing against Claudio. You know, he's clearly a workhorse and great in the ring, but to push the brand more, I think it makes sense for someone like Jericho, because we saw what he did and can do and has done with AEW. So if you are going to invest in this Ring of Honor and kind of push it to the next level, having him
the star power,
yeah,
right? That's always been the MO on Claudio, right? This is a guy who is world class when it comes to in-ring competition. The guy is a freak of nature when it comes to his strength, what he's capable of. And we saw him, you know, lifting Jericho above his head, pure power on Claudio's side, right? But when it comes to that over the top hilarity, you know, that what you look for in a sports entertainer, Jericho embodies it. And
you're right.
He has that star power that just naturally makes people want to tune in. So I have the utmost confidence. This is a man who's pivoted throughout his entire career, always finds a way to stay relevant, always finds a way to get the fans eating up everything he has to dish out. Eat it up. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be able to do the same with ROH, and that's why TK is probably pretty happy that Jericho came away with the W here. Right?
Absolutely. So, are you happy with this finish? The women's fatal 4-way, Toni Storm
heading into this match. Yeah, I mean, there's
a lot to talk about for the women's division
right
now.
For me, I'm going to say, like, I know I'm maybe in the minority in this because I know a lot of fans are dying for the Jamie Hayter breakout, right? But I was really excited to see Jamie and Britt sort of look like they patched things up almost out of necessity, because it looks like the women's division got quite the shakeup at Grand Slam, and Britt is clearly on her heels now. Busted up nose, Athena really
again.
Athena busted her up pretty bad with that move. Landing basically her entire body on Britt's face.
Yeah. Made for a good visual, though, as the closing part.
Britt's always, you know what? That is something that Britt is more than willing to take on. She loves, like, those visuals. How many times already have we seen in AEW history Britt bloodied up? Just an iconic visual. She's so good at that. You know, this was a good match when it came to, I think, building and showcasing some of the strength in this division. I think with Saraya coming, that is a clear statement that the company sees a need to continue to push star power. And I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of the women's division, is that it feels like at times it was Britt and everybody else. Right. Well, Britt's not going to be able to cast a shadow on Saraya as far as her ability to be recognized for star power. So this is going to change things a little bit.
The
landscape has changed, my friend. And the more things change, the more they stay the same, in the sense that Britt is clearly going to have to start scheming, trying to figure out how to come up, get through this. And it'll be interesting to see how the champ responds, right? The interim champ, Toni Storm, defending champion, somebody who I think is, I've talked about it at length with when we got to this point. She proved herself when it came to being able to stand up toe to toe on the mic.
Yeah.
Right. We know she can go in the ring, but it's important for the women's division, if it's going to grow, to be where it needs to be. They need to have more people who can kill it on the mic.
Depth has always been the biggest downfall.
I mean, and again, we got to see Serena Deeb go in the ring tonight. Somebody who's absolutely flawless as a professor in the ring. But
you're right.
This division needs stars, people who can command your attention, who feel confident and comfortable on the microphone, who can carry feuds, right? And how often have we talked about, even though we hate MJF, that's one of the things we respect about the guy, is that no matter what, you can always count on him to deliver on the mic and to carry a feud, right? AEW women's division needs more people who Tony can, and I know he gets a lot of heat for this, right? That he doesn't care about the women's division. He doesn't book it well enough. But the truth is, I think that we have been here from day one.
Yeah.
And I think that we try not to criticize very much, but being honest, there aren't a lot of women in this division who feel like they can carry a feud, a main event caliber feud, with the pomp, the circumstance, the character work, the promo work that it takes to build a division. And that's why Britt has been the crutch for so long. And I think Soraya's debut is going to change a lot of that. I think that it's clear Toni Storm is somebody who I think can stand out. Saraya is another.
Back.
Right. So now you're starting
But
to add names. You're starting to add names that Tony can now start to believably build programs around. Right.
Yeah.
And undeniably, leaving this matchup, I think a lot of people are saying there's an excitement, a buzz around the women's division that I feel like hasn't been there. Even though I think that Toni Storm's a hell of a competitor,
right?
Athena in this matchup. I mean, I know your wife even is a huge fan of her offense, right? Athena's offense is pretty compelling.
She's a pound for pound. I mean, she's not a big, tall competitor, but she can handle herself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
She's got a good blend of power, speed. No doubt about it. This division has a lot of players in it now that can go in the ring.
Right.
And if you continue to breathe life into it and you have confidence in the stars that can deliver ratings, you're going to have more opportunities for people to step up. The women's division is getting to a point now where Tony really doesn't have an excuse to not give them time. And I think that maybe that's what he wants deep down, right? I don't think that Tony wants to put the women's division on the back burner. I just think he needs to have confidence in the stars that are going to be out there, that they can deliver in a way that will come through in the ratings. And I think that you had clearly, honestly, leaving Grand Slam, the buzz leaving Grand Slam, to me, it wasn't Moxley winning the title. There was a lot of buzz around the Acclaimed, right?
Scissor me.
There was a lot of buzz around the Acclaimed winning. But, I mean, this big debut feels like that's what people are talking about the most right now on social. Just in our conversations, there's a lot of buzz and intrigue. Is she going to be able to wrestle?
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, we saw some hints of that, but to the match part, I wasn't too much of a fan of the Fatal 4-Way. It was just a little bit kind of chaotic, but we won't dive too much deep into that because the bigger story.
We see a Fatal 4-Way just recently too. It wasn't that long ago at All Out, right? All Out, there was a Fatal 4-Way, right? So it's like, it feels like a little bit more of the same. I get where you're coming from, right?
But this was not, I can't remember the last time someone debuted in AEW and didn't even say a word and got the reaction and the buzz that they did without even saying a single word. We've seen, when CM Punk and Danielson and all these, and Adam Cole, all of them came out and they did something and they said something. So this was pretty powerful addition. And I think it is a needle mover, especially if she can go in the ring.
I hope so. I really hope that she can wrestle. I think that changes everything. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it changes everything when it comes to her impact on this company. Now, again, even if she can't go, and this is why I spoke so much about the importance of stars, right? Who can really carry a feud or carry a program.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she can't go in the ring, she's proven that as a manager, she's been given authority roles in her past life, right? In her past career. On the stick, she can entertain a crowd, right? Like, she can absolutely keep people engaged.
Very comfortable.
She's not going to wilter. And when ultimately when Britt Baker comes for her, which she will, when the DMD cuts at one of her famous promos where, she just goes for the jugular and tries to cut somebody down. Soraya's not going to back down from that, right? She's not going to wilter in that moment. And I think that's going to be, again, we talk about iron sharpens iron. This is an example of somebody who will make other people in this division better. So I think it's a win-win for AEW. If she can go in the ring, it's a game changer on a whole nother level.
I said total package because of the influence inside and outside the ring.
Yeah.
Obviously, the buzz is to another level, but and then also, even if she doesn't, if she does have to be a manager, that's still a huge win for the division too.
Absolutely.
We don't have a true women's manager that can really like lead the charge. Essentially, do we?
Especially a babyface
Yeah.
style, right? I mean, we know Vicky Guerrero is famous for like her ability to be on the and make you want your ears bleed.
Oh gosh.
But from a babyface perspective, you're right. There aren't a lot of, and being a babyface on the mic is, I think, the hardest thing to do in this industry.
Yeah.
To be a fun babyface that the crowd doesn't get tired of. We saw it happen to Cody, right? We've seen it happen to countless people over the course of history. It's very hard to be a babyface and have the fans stay behind you. And I think Saraya has that ability to do that. She just kind of has that edge. As I've marinated on this more, I've become more excited about her arrival because at first, I think a lot of it for me just hinged on, is she going to wrestle or not? Right. If she doesn't, then I wasn't as intrigued. But talking to you, talking to some of our friends, her influence on social media. I mean, Paige's star power, just looking at the numbers, she has almost triple the amount of followers on Twitter that AEW has.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you talk about just the overall following that this woman has. There's some serious ability. And fresh off the heels of our interview with Wardlow, where he talked about how he wants to be more of a crossover star, right?
Good point.
It's not a bad thing if AEW starts to grab, and you can see they're starting to try to bring in Action Bronson and things like this.
Danhausen.
Bringing in people who have the ability to kind of
Pizza Boy.
Yeah, Pizza Boy. But you know what I mean,
yeah.
right? And I think Saraya has that ability. I think Saraya certainly, her movie was probably, one of the cooler wrestler movies. I mean,
Fighting with the Family.
Fighting with the Family is great.
It was a great movie.
Her life story, really. So,
yeah.
No, there's a lot to like about this move, and I'm really eager. It's also really good timing too. Not to go on too much about this, but it's also really good timing too because of the CM Punk stuff, right? I think the fans need something, that shot in the arm.
Distraction, maybe?
Yeah, right? I think the fans need that shot in the arm to kind of get them excited again and get them, right? That point. Buzz. I know AEW is famous for having a lot of debuts, but this timing was really, really needed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, AEW definitely benefits from this right here, right now.
Do you think, before we talk about the next match, do you think Tony would have brought her in regardless if she's cleared or not? Or do you think he knows she's cleared? Do you think he would have brought her in if she was not cleared at all?
I mean,
is it worth it to him? Do you think it's worth it to the division and the company to bring someone in not cleared?
Again, for me, I think that it changes the conversation dramatically if she can go in the ring. It is a significant difference. That said, again, there aren't a lot of people in this division that I view, and I'm just a fan, right? But there aren't a lot of people. I'm a mark, as MJF would put. A fat bald one at that. MJF would go on a tirade of it. But for me, I would say, again, I'm a huge DMD fan, right? I have been from day one.
No secret.
But some of she has also been the victim of not having enough women who can go toe to toe with her stick. Right. I love that Thunder Rosa feud so much because Thunder has that fiery personality where she's not going to back down from Britt.
Mm-hmm.
But there aren't. This division has transformed quite a bit, and I think having people like Saraya who are confident and comfortable on the mic, who won't back down, and will push Britt to another level. It will raise this, as you like to talk about. As the tide rises, all ships go up too, right? This is an example where I think she has that ability to carry programs.
Okay.
So I'm eager to see how it goes. The buzz. I don't know if she's going to be a manager or what, but I'm excited to see how she fits in this division too, right?
We'll find out more this Wednesday.
Speaking of I was talking about earlier
the arrival.
Yeah, the arrival. I was thinking about too, like how quickly fans turn on baby faces, right? It's very hard to stay a baby face in this industry. Swerve in our glory. I feel like I've adopted them now. I've brought them over to the dark side because of the popularity they claimed. It's almost like Swerve in our glory were, especially at the media scrum, they were getting really disrespected. And I was getting angry about it. I could only imagine how Swerve and Keith Lee were feeling. So I think that this was kind of one of those cool moments in wrestling where you see a double turn, right? You've talked about it for a long time. The Acclaimed are going to become massive baby faces. Back when they were heels, you were telling me over and over, it's only a matter of time. This is one of those moments where it felt like that switch flipped.
At all out. That was it.
It absolutely. And this was the icing on the cake, right? Winning the championship, that pop that they got. I mean, the top two pops of the night to me were the Acclaim winning and Soraya's debut. Right?
All I gotta say is scissor me daddy ass.
It doesn't get much better. I know you're geeking out about it. You don't buy a lot of wrestling shirts. This is one of the ones you had to get.
I know. Very appropriate. It's going right next to my Mr. Ass shirt that I still have from.
You'll have the whole collection.
That's
fantastic. I love
Mr.
it.
Ass and Scissor Me Daddy Ass. And wait for the next one, right? No, this honestly was one of the matches I was the night before, or like I had like a crazy dream that we were in the audience and started scissoring everyone, and we were at Grand Slam because I'm all for it, as a resident babyface, I'm all for like a good feel-good story. And this was it. And, you could see it just projecting that way. They were getting over and over and over week in and week out, week in and week out. And I think everyone was surprised by the pop and the reaction they got it all out. And honestly,
that was one of the stories of the show.
The pop and stuff aside, the match was killer.
You even had
the match of the night.
You even had people like from WWE talking about how Seth Rollins talked about
that match was so good.
It's true.
It was such a good match all out, and obviously it was tough to top. The match at Grand Slam didn't really hit on that level to me. I know maybe there's more time constraint.
So soon afterwards too. It's hard to have a follow up like that met that,
but it was enough. Like it was some back and forth, plenty of back and forth. Crowd was into it from the start.
Absolutely.
You could feel the energy, and I loved how Daddy Ass got involved in true way and them coming out victorious. But the bigger story, is obviously homegrown talent.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. We got the Acclaimed homegrown tag team champs, Wardlow homegrown TNT champ, Jade TBS champ. Moxley's not homegrown, but he's a day one. Heart and soul. He's a day one guy, or early guy.
He's the heart and soul of this company.
Yeah, so which is you could call him relatively-ish homegrown. Pac is a day one guy.
Yes, he is. Yep.
And Tony Storm, and so
you're right. I mean, there are a lot of ex-WWE, but I think like more than that, right? I think that the great part of this story with the Acclaimed is obviously, this is one of those that it just was natural. This slowly built up over time.
I'm surprised how it happened so soon.
They overcame a lot of obstacles, and that's why they do fit so well as baby faces. Even though Max's raps sometimes can go a little hard,
sometimes
they have overcome a lot of obstacles, especially with Bowen's injury history, right? Max getting himself in trouble on the mic, getting suspended. These guys have had bumps in the road, and for it to culminate like this, it is a feel-good story that I think any AEW fan, anybody would be there, and it was obvious. The crowd was eating this up, right? This is one of those where it's cool to see their hard work pay off. To think about where they were when they debuted, right? Like how corny it felt, like with the Young Bucks, like them so obsessed with the book cover and staring at each other's junk.
Now that would work so good on TV.
It would. They've naturally smoothed out the kinks in their presentation. They're so funny. They're so confident. And again, like you and I talk about this all the time. We geek out a lot about the types of wrestlers that can do things that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Phoenix is your favorite, one of your favorites in the ring. You know, I'm a diehard Pac guy.
Pretty similar styles.
Yes, right. You would never say that the Acclaimed are similar to, you know, the Lucha Brothers when it comes to their ability in the ring. But this is what makes pro wrestling great, right? Is these are two guys that know how to put on a story and get the fans engaged. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? They make us care about what they're doing. They make us have fun. They are pure entertainers. And so I thought that these guys have created already a nice story or a nice history of entertaining moments. I can only imagine what they have in store for us now as champs. The game's got to get stepped up that much more. And I think that Bowens and Caster and Daddy Ass are going to keep us laughing and cheering them on for quite some time ahead. It's going to be pretty cool.
We've been calling for these guys to be tag team champs for a while, just because they remind me a lot of the New Age Outlaws, of their gimmick and their, you know, the fun that it gives you as a fan, and just being so excited to see them, hearing their music and hearing what they have to say and coming to the ring and chants and all this stuff. And
the siren and the "oh, you didn't know," you're going to get jumping off the seat, off your
every
seat.
single time, no matter what.
And that is a good point you bring it up, like the New Age Outlaws, right? Because that was one of the things where you like, because I'm going to be honest with you guys out there, like, I love Swerve in Our Glory. I think that this was just a weird one of those times where you threw two singles wrestlers together, and sometimes it fizzles out, and sometimes you absolutely hit, right? And I think these guys hit. Their styles worked really well off of each other in the ring. Their personalities worked really well off of each other. You know, Swerve being more of that cocky, confident, swagger type of to him, and then Keith Lee being that calm, stoic, kind of like just intellectual, kind of a badass. Right. But they worked so well together, and it was bittersweet for me because I was super geeked about having the Acclaimed win, but it did make me wonder where these guys are going to go. But one of the things that you brought up when I was going back and forth on that was, you know, just because the Acclaimed aren't putting on these like crazy acrobatics in a match, or just because they might like don't focus solely on the in-ring work with the Acclaimed, right? Some of our favorite tag champs of all time, again, like you said, the New Age Outlaws, you brought that up, and that's a great example where charisma and ability to entertain and get the fans engaged and hyped supersedes, it trumps all that other stuff. Because if you're doing all these flips and all that stuff, and it doesn't really matter if we're not having a good time. That's true. That's what this is all about, is us having fun. And that's true. No one makes us have more fun than the Acclaimed.
And scissoring. And it's even looking better and better when we got the scissors from Daddy Max and Bowens after Battle of the Belts. I mean, that's just, we scissored the champs.
No doubt.
A month
pretty
earlier,
awesome.
Man.
We knew they were going to be champs even then. So, no, it is awesome. We're really happy
Scissor
for them.
In the glory.
It's cool for the IWC too, where it feels like there's really nobody complaining about this. Everybody's pretty happy.
I mean, the Swerve in the Glory, you were getting me on the bandwagon, and I love them. Liking them more and more. I think I would have liked to see a longer run, but there's no way you cannot capitalize on what was given in the momentum. I mean, look at what happened to Danielson at WrestleMania and stuff. The crowd hijacked. The crowd literally hijacked feud of this. They hijacked the Acclaimed.
You're right.
It could have been a one and done match essentially, because there was no build to it. It was a last minute all out match essentially the week before, because they were, the most wins and in the rankings and all that. And it turned out to be one of the best matches of the pay-per-view, and then led to the fans hijacking the booking. And Tony Khan said it at the presser, was like, how about a match in a couple weeks? And you could see, they're like, you almost could see the smoke coming off their head, because they're like, we're losing the belts.
Yep, I got you.
That's the point where they knew they were going to be dropping the belts because of how hot they were.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, absolutely right, man. TK doesn't like disappointing the fans, and this was an example where he give the people what they want, and boy did we want to see the Acclaimed as champs. So
it's going to be
really
so fun. These guys, we've wanted them every single week on the show, and now we're going to finally get them every single week on TV, because
you just mentioned Danielson though, man, and this is the match. The Battle of the Blackpool Combat Club. I think probably the most controversial match
of the night.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that there were a lot of folks, and I got to throw it to you, right? I want to
Yeah.
hear your insight because I know Danielson is on your Mount Rushmore.
He is.
Being your best friend, Danielson's got a guy who kind of I felt like kept you as a fan of pro wrestling during a stage when wrestling wasn't like, we moved on from the
Sure.
DX days, right?
Right.
We moved on from those days,
The
and
Mr.
Danielson,
Ass days.
yeah, Danielson kind of kept you
They
engaged
did.
and made you like a fan because you've always been like really behind just his in-ring work, but also just like he just has that natural. He's not a big personality, but he
Right.
has a natural charisma where you want to root for this guy.
You're right.
He's the ultimate underdog. You
Mhm.
want to see him do well. But nobody has been, between you and I mean, you've been really pounding the table that Moxley is the heart of this company. He
proved
should have
it.
never dropped. You and I talked about it a lot. You were pushing back on he should have dropped the belt to Punk. You've been firmly behind Moxley as the backbone
You're
of
right.
AEW. So this match, I want to hear kind of what your emotion, kind of how it went through, and are you happy with the end result? I mean, because that's really what it all goes down to.
I'm definitely happy with the end result because of the fact that, not to echo you too much, but, Moxley became the interim champ, when a time they needed one. And he carried the company for months and months and months. And then he proved that. And he came back, against, certain situations that, backstage that were, came back when he necessarily wasn't supposed to, and was being there and proved himself and revamped himself personally. And so when he did return from his personal leave of absence, he had so much, his promos were literally like chills and like your hair on your arm was standing up. He threw that amazing promo when he came back. And so, yes, Danielson's my guy on my Mount Rushmore, but I don't think Danielson necessarily has been built for the top guy currently. I think he is a top guy, but I don't think he's been built storyline and all that to be a top guy at the moment. I want him to get the belt and to be a champion in AEW eventually, but this is Mox's time. And I don't think any momentum slowed down after that loss to CM Punk. I mean, it was a battle, and we kind of all knew that was going to happen, just based
Hometown.
on, based on all different circumstances. But, it's hard to forget about. I mean, for me, it's easy to forget about the loss and just keep looking forward because, the past 3 weeks, AEW has been on fire. And, without the young Bucks or the Elite and CM Punk, obviously we miss them, but the show goes on, and you got to have people to step up. Like we talked with Wardlow, and Mox is one of those guys who is someone you want to lead the charge, to be the conductor. And he has been. And looking bigger picture, Danielson has had some amazing feuds in his career, but the Mox, even though we've seen it before, the Mox MJF feud was fantastic. Dictator John, someone to go toe to toe with that aggressive, personal stuff. Like Danielson, I don't think I think he could go to the dark side, but nothing like to try to match MJF's dark side. Mox could get to that dark side, or he'll just punch you in the face.
Mox's intensity, kind of no nonsense vibe
works so good with MJF being a total scumbag.
Yeah.
Also in the ring, Danielson is, in that 20 by 20 squared circle, there's not many people that can hang with him. And so nothing against MJF, because we've seen him and Darby, that one match they had was fantastic. And one of the best wrestling matches I've seen MJF wrestle in AEW. But someone who is like a brawler, it kind of goes to a more even level.
It fits MJF's in-ring style more. Yeah.
So that'd be more compelling to see. But to have MJF beat Mox, that'd be pretty, clean. I don't see it happening, but
it would certainly be. That's a great point that you make at the end, right? Because I think that part of it is like, oh, well, the story of MJF and Mox makes sense, right? Like they already have planted seeds that those two guys are going to go at each other.
Sure.
And yes, again, like character-wise, promo-wise, it makes a lot more sense to go with Moxley.
Sure.
But from a long-term booking perspective, you look at this and you say, when MJF does become champion, the significance of MJF winning and beating Jon Moxley for the title. Again, MJF winning his first world championship in AEW is going to be a big moment in the company's history and in his career. Right, he's young, got a bright future ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to beat Jon Moxley for the AEW championship, I think it means more. Right,
True.
Like again,
the guy of AEW.
We love Danielson, right? But from a history standpoint, from a significance standpoint, beating the guy,
good point,
beating Moxley and ripping the belt from the heartbeat, right?
He's just gonna rub it in all our faces,
right? Again, the devil and MJF will be more than happy to rub it in our faces and look at that as as the ultimate victory for himself. So that is a hidden, I think, undertone of this whole thing.
It's a good point.
Is the significance of MJF, who he beats for the title. It's going to mean something, and already we're seeing the Blackpool Combat Club, MJF and the Firm, that type of thing being set up a little bit. Right, we're already seeing some of that. Wheeler and MJF had quite the battle, on the mic, and it got a little physical.
Yeah.
But you're already starting to see
a little.
Yeah, you're seeing some of that, right?
Yeah.
So Mox has been set up as the clear leader of Blackpool Combat Club, even though it's weird for us to say it. Danielson has been presented as a notch below, and Ethan Page is going to have somebody that he's going to need to feud with. Ethan Page versus Danielson would be a hell of a feud.
That would be to elevate Ethan Page and have some good matches.
Yeah.
And this is a good point. Scoop brings up how, Danielson's time, the transitional champ. I don't think Mox necessarily is a transitional champ, but it's one of those, AEW holds on to their champions for, let's say
long
3
time,
pay-per-views,
right.
almost a year. And so, yes, Mox has held it for that long. So I guess if he does lose it at Full Gear, it's not as impactful as a 2-month run of Danielson, something like that. So
and
that kind of makes sense.
And we've seen Mox. You brought it out is we've seen how resilient this man is.
Yeah.
And the way that the whole CM Punk thing played out with him in the title, they're trying to reboot and kind of move on from that chapter, but Moxley being a convincing champion, no one bats an eye when he wins this, right? So if Moxley loses with a shortened title reign, it doesn't impact his legacy because he's a 3-time world champion. Whereas if Danielson lost quickly, it's your first title reign and you lose within 2 months, your first or second title defense, it definitely does put a damper on things.
Right.
And that's why I think this is the smart decision. I think a lot of people were upset about it, right? A lot of people deep down were trying to root for Danielson, but I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's going to be a lot. I mean, this Dynamite felt like a pay-per-view, so I'm really excited for this coming Dynamite because of all the segments we're going to get. We're going to hear, the fallout of Grand Slam.
Yep.
is going to be pretty interesting for
Absolutely.
sure, because everyone's got a lot to say. And so, speaking of a lot to say, our guy who we interviewed last week, Wardlow,
yes, sir,
was in action with his buddy Samoa Joe, which we brought up in our interview. So the War Joe was in action, and they made quick work of Tony Nese and Josh Woods, which I think that they make a good team, and I think these guys are very, very talented in the ring. And
good to hear you say
even though they made quick work with these 2 champs, which they should be doing that to more people.
We've been calling for their dominance out of Wardlow. You're right.
Something with Nese and Woods do have something there that they deserve, I think, a little bit more love than being mid, if you say, because they're beasts in the ring and definitely seasoned vets. But this was one of the more aggressive matches I've seen Wardlow go on the offense quickly, and he was just tearing through both these guys nonstop. And obviously the cherry on top was the Powerbomb Symphony to Smart Mark Sterling as well. But what did you think of this pairing of War Joe?
I mean, 2 of my favorites, right? I mean, Samoa Joe, one of my favorite wrestlers of my lifetime. I just love the way I like his whole vibe.
Yeah.
I like my wrestling to feel real. And every time Joe steps in the ring, it feels real. So I love that. And they both kind of carry that same, like, we picked it up from Wardlow just interviewing him, chatting with the guy, like a cool vibe, right? Like kind of like they kind of got that, like, got the coolness to them, but you don't want to fuck with them type of mentality, right? And I like that they're both they vibe together really well. I thought that these guys worked incredibly well together from just an in-ring perspective, to a point where I'm intrigued to see do they keep this going for a little while? I don't know. I'm curious. Because I'd also like to see them go against each other. Not gonna lie, I think that match would be a banger, right? Banger.
Oh, for sure.
So it's curious. I'm curious to see where they're going. I think that we've talked a lot when we talked to Wardlow about the TNT title and where he sees that going forward. I think we made it clear in that conversation. I think he was very evident that he wants people to start stepping up.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, like, having a clear path is hard when you have this type of roster, but having somebody like Samoa Joe, who also is a champion, kind of that iron sharpens iron mentality where they both have that, like, whoever wants to step up, come at us, right? I wouldn't
want to get in that ring.
Exactly. I like that these guys both are kind of motivated by the same thing. Like, we want to be fighting champions, right? And if it means that we need to step in the ring together to take on a tag team, by all means, whatever kind of style of match you want to put us in, we'll take you on. Right. And I like that mentality. Two guys who are just, they get amped up by getting in these fights, right? Like, you can tell just by our conversation with Wardlow, that's a dude who, he says, thrives on competition, right? It fuels him like it is what he runs on. And, and a guy for like Joe, who has seen it all, has been there, done that, seen it all. That's a dude who has had a chip on his shoulder from day one. Right, a guy who constantly
looks like
it, and so it's the same mentality of, like, step to me in the ring and prove to me that you can hang with me, earn my respect. Both these guys have that mentality of, like, come at me, fight me, and see what happens afterwards. Like, that's what I like about both of them. And like you said, I think that Nice and Woods, we saw something out of them, right? If you start having these opportunities where, like, I wanted to see Wardlow do an open challenge, right? But it's like, just start having people step up to the plate to fight these guys. I think it's going to show a lot about who they are, but it's also going to give AEW an opportunity to reveal some things about other people that they might believe in, right? That's
a good point.
If you can hang with a guy like Wardlow,
not many can.
Exactly. If you could hang with a guy like Joe and take some of the physicality, right? Not many can. If you could do that, it earns you some serious cred.
That's true.
I'm geeked to see where it goes, man, because, again, like, if these two are going as a tag team, the Acclaim's title reign might be short-lived, my friend.
Well, I get a refill.
Yeah.
Who would you like to see Wardlow go against next?
Wow.
I know.
Well, I know for a fact one of the things I'm really geeked about is seeing Wardlow test his strength tested, right? We all like this Powerbomb Symphony. It's something that we talked a lot about with him. We love his feats of strength. It's one thing when you're powerbombing Mark Sterling, and boy, Mark Sterling eats a hell of a powerbomb. But, like, I would love to see him try to powerbomb Keith Lee.
Oof. So you're talking Swerve and Glory?
I would love to see that.
Wow.
I would love to see that.
That's good,
just first off the top of my head. I think that, like, again, I'm big on the Hoss battle, right?
Yeah, me too.
I love that, right? I love a good Hoss battle. And when I think, like, Hoss is in this company, Keith Lee is up there. Those guys are fresh off the heels of losing. It would be interesting to see them, how they pivot. That could ultimately be them getting more, they lose to Wardlow and Samoa Joe, continue to build on this frustration that I think that you've been talking to me about, is like the writing's on the wall for Swerve in Our Glory, that eventually that frustration is going to build and that group's going to implode. So what better way than, I mean, you go up against Joe, and how many teams in this division can believably put away Keith Lee, right? How many people in this company can believably put down Keith Lee? So I'll tell you two, Samoa Joe and Wardlow, right? Those are two guys that you would not bat an eye if they beat Keith Lee. Not a lot of guys in this company could. So that's one. The other one, and it might not make sense story-wise, but just from an in-ring, it would be fun to watch. I would love to see them go against House of Black.
I knew you were going to say that.
Love to see them go again. Hoss battle, right? Brody King against Wardlow. I want to see that visual. I want to see those guys go toe-to-toe. And I love Buddy Matthews' work. He's like, to me, he's one of the guys who most reminds me of my favorite wrestler in the world, Pac, right? I think Buddy Matthews, his selling, his body language, his attention to detail, he's one of those guys who I hold in very high regard in ring. So those are two off the top of my head that I would love to see. Neither one really like has a story that's built there, right? But I think Swerve in Our Glory, you could easily do something along those lines. And then it could ultimately pivot into, if those guys wanted to go towards solo gold, you could also pivot because both Joe and Wardlow have solo belts. What about you? Who are a team that you would like to see them
other
against?
than what you saw? Yeah, I think it would be cool, like Swerve and the Glory try to redeem themselves, maybe get a victory in, see a little turmoil, and then challenge them, and then they lose, and that's kind of their breakup angle a little bit, because it'd be interesting to see how Swerve stands alone as like a nasty heel, which I know Team Heel is salivating over.
He's gonna be so good.
But those teams aside, I think you could start with like Butcher and Blade, which would be a good one as well.
Another Hoss,
for sure.
Yep.
And there was another one. I couldn't think of what came to mind. But I mean, I like Butcher and Blade because of the Hoss things. I mean, in 2.0. I mean, it would be funny because just the promo.
Can you imagine them eating
2.0 versus anybody? Yes,
they
would be they'd be like a fish out of water, just like so
right.
He could do high power bombs in each time because of the smaller guys.
Wouldn't be hard.
Those ones as well.
That's a good one.
Well, let's talk about a storyline that has been in and out backstage and in the front of a lot of things. And
I'm excited about this one. Not getting the hype and the love that some other matches are, but I love this one.
I think we mutually agreed, Eddie Kingston, obviously his whole story in AEW has been fantastic. Maybe, not necessarily been on top of our radar, but after that all-out match kind of reignited us because of just the brutality of it and just how badass that match was at the 0 hour. And also, Sammy Guevara is someone we have been very high on.
Huge fan
early
of Sammy.
on. Young guy, steals the show almost every time he's on TV. 110% gives it all. Very passionate, can sell amazing, has awesome offense. I mean, honestly, the total package. I mean, yes, he's still very young in the industry, but the guy is got it. And he's got it in many ways. And so he's a lot of fun. I know he's getting a lot of heat from being just this heel. I mean, he's doing what he should be doing, Mr. Team Heel over here. And so you must be eating him up because of how good he's doing as a heel. It. And I think just keep going with it, because haters, you want people to talk, and people are talking. If they're making noise, good or bad, you're doing something right. And I'm always glued to the TV when Sammy's on in the match, because I just love the way he is can command a match, and in any second he could steal the match or steal the night with something just ridiculous. I mean, we were at Blood and Guts when he got thrown off the cage, and we were like eye level at the top of the cage, and just that is insane. No thanks.
I mean,
and that's not the first time he's taken a huge bump like that.
Honestly, every time I watch Sammy, and again, we've been doing this since day one, right? So Sammy's one of those guys that we've been able to kind of sit back and watch him go through the progressions of his character and his growth. And every time I watch him, I always think about something that you said that stands out, and I think it's really true. Sammy Guevara is one of those guys that you want to pay money to go see live, right? There are only a handful of guys that you can really say, like, I want to be there, and I want to be able to see firsthand because that rush, that emotion, he does something in almost every single match that makes you jump out of your seat, right? I love watching Sammy because in a day and age where so many people kind of got their offense kind of down to a script, right? They kind of, there's so many people who kind of like can go through the motion. You can almost count the moves that some of these guys do.
Sure.
Sammy is one of those dudes who feels like he's always trying to figure out a new creative way to blow our minds.
You're right.
I love watching Sammy in the ring. This guy is as creative and as exciting as anybody in AEW. And that's something that, like,
not much more to say about that.
Yeah,
so true.
I love it. And what I'm liking about this feud with Eddie is you talked about it. I love Sammy as a heel. I think he's and his gimmick right now is working really well. He's a young guy, good looking dude. He's got a beautiful wife. He's in Jericho Appreciation Society. He's really Jericho's right-hand man.
The sex gods.
There's so many things. And even Tony, I loved their interaction on Twitter. Even Tony was talking about, like, man, he's got a horseshoe up his ass. This is the luckiest guy on the planet, right? It's like, he loses to Eddie, and then because Eddie won't let go of his chokehold, he ends up walking away victorious, right, at Grand Slam. Again, Tony said it well. Luckiest guy on the planet. And it's easy to hate guys like that, right? Because he's young.
For sure.
And it's like, this guy is like got it all, and he realizes he has it all, and he'll remind you that he has it all. He's got that, right?
Right.
I like that, but I also think that for Sammy to take that next step, right? As a fan of his, as somebody who sees what this dude is capable of, he doesn't get the love and respect he deserves because he's got that showmanship. That's such a focus of what he does, right? It's so about, like, the charisma and, playing to the crowd and taunting and all that stuff. I like this feud with Eddie because Eddie's the type of dude who will slap you across the chest over and over and over again until you're red. He will choke you out and won't let go until he proves a point, right? This is what Sammy needs a feud like this to get him to where he needs to go.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Because I think that it's not going to happen overnight, but Sammy needs to start to develop a little bit of that edge. Right, Sammy needs to start to develop a little bit of that fire in his belly where he gets pissed, and it's not always about doing a springboard, backflip, diamond cutter, right? Like,
right.
He I want to see some of that fire in his belly where he starts going at it in a way that Eddie Kingston will draw this out of him. I think that this feud is exactly what Sammy needs right now. It's the match started with Sammy coming out and just being, you're a fat piece of shit. I love that, right?
How often do we get that blurred line, of the backstage true heat to this?
And that's one of the things that
unless that was a work.
And we don't know, and that's what we love,
marks.
right? We love that, right? I like seeing that, and I think that this is only going to continue to get better. I want to see, obviously this feud's not over yet. Eddie's going to be pissed after the way that match ended. I want to see this one go. And another feud that I feel like has, I think, been an example of two guys that are a perfect fit as far as bringing out what they need in each other, right? Eddie bringing out that edge and that fire in Sammy. And this next feud, Hobbs and Starks, I'll be honest with you, man. I've been saying it from day one. This feud has put a real spotlight on the ability of Will Hobbs to be a well-rounded performer. Everybody knows that this is a big dude, a powerhouse. Taz had something in this group, man. It's obvious, and it's a shame that this group had to fall apart for them all to develop into who they need to be. But the growth of Hobbs in this feud, I'm surprised, right? Like, I like Hobbs, but I've been taken aback by the fact that I personally think he's been the better promo guy than Starks, which is weird. Everybody knows that Starks is like a super charismatic dude. That's what Ricky Starks, he is going to be a megastar in this company because of his showmanship. But I personally think Hobbs has been freaking killing it in this feud on the in his promo game. So
You're absolutely right.
I'm loving it, and I think that I was shocked that he won it all out, but now I see why. Right,
Yeah.
we got to see a Grand Slam, kind of why that happened. Ricky Starks coming out on top. I know you're a big fan of Starks, and you
Both
definitely
guys.
you see a lot of hype and potential in him. But you and I have both been here from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have talked a lot in private conversations, even not even on the show, about how amazing it is to see what Hobbs has done, right? Easy guy to root for when it comes to his personal story, but that personal story, that drive of a guy who will not allow life to beat him, has also carried over into his professional career, because this is a dude who
So good.
is getting so much better. It's unbelievable to see his growth.
It has, and Starks has had it for a while, and Hobbs has been it's a true example of just the drive. As Starks brought up, I totally forgot about him being a security guard for Britt Baker,
Right,
to where he is now,
Yep.
main eventing Grand Slam Rampage. And so
pretty
his
cool.
growth has been, like you said, to echo that, has been amazing to watch. And not only has he physically transformed, but he had his ability to carry matches has been, the next level. His promos are next level. I mean, his entrances are awesome. I love how he's using that middle Cody Rhodes entrance.
Yep.
Like everything about him, he's got the total package. And I think looking at the grand scheme and looking at the big picture of AEW, there's not many people who have grown from where they started to where they're at now
Quite like
quite like him. I mean, we talked about the Acclaimed and stuff like that. They're probably some of that as well, but as an individual, to transform yourself physically and to now stand on alone and outside of a group and really be someone to want to watch and be captivating every single time you're on TV and in the ring. It's like his offense is awesome. It's how could you not like the powerhouse Hobbs offense, the slams and the Monstars, new gear and stuff, on Grand Slam. So I think we have ourselves, some have said online, almost like the next Wardlow or something like that, which is perfectly fine because you need those.
Yep.
There's no, Starks and Wardlow can't be duplicated, but you can try, and each guys have totally different packages to deliver in terms of their offense or in terms of their charisma. But I mean, we're seeing a star
Hobbs is starting to be like, and again, Wardlow is started as a heel and has transformed into a baby face, right? And a compelling one.
Right.
But Hobbs is really starting to feel like that other example of Hobbs feels like a natural heel to me right now. And it's wild because he was such
I loved him as an
amazing baby face when he first started.
Yeah.
But like just his overall vibe, you can tell he's definitely blossomed as a heel right now. And I think this is we might be on the precipice of something really special if they end up seeing what we see, if they end up pushing Hobbs the way that they could.
Right.
I don't have any doubt that this guy can be a legit main event talent. And again, this is a guy that, again, CM Punk's getting a lot of heat right now, but this is one of those guys that CM Punk talked about
first on the list, pretty much.
Right. And
was it CM Punk's first match?
CM Punk talked about it before he joined AEW, how Hobbs was a guy who he wanted to work with. He saw a lot of upside in
multiple times.
And so, again, I always try to, in my life, I've learned nobody is all good or all bad. It's just not the case. And I think that Punk has to be smiling a little bit, even through all this crap. That he's got to be happy to see that Hobbs is really blossoming to the point that he is. It's pretty awesome. Not his first match. We're going back and looking.
Last Grand Slam, it was Powerhouse and CM Punk.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did not know that. That's pretty sweet, man. So, yeah, I mean, to see where Hobbs is at right now, obviously, I do think that this Starks his point going into this is he wanted to close the book of Hobbs. You think
usually those unsanctioned matches, I feel like, are kind of like the end. I mean, Starks came out on top in this unsanctioned match, which was Starks took some brutal spots. The double chair.
I was going to bring that
backdrop.
one up. Oh my gosh.
It looked like Starks was crying.
It was bad. That was bad, dude.
No,
To be dropped right in the middle of your spine
risk
on 2
versus
chairs.
reward. Like,
just,
do you even need to do that kind of spot?
especially a guy with a neck
Yeah.
history. I mean, you go wrong on the spine, you're done.
That's not worth it. I mean, you could have just done it on chairs flat, and it would have done the same effect.
Yeah.
I think,
But again,
regardless of everything that happened,
what they're willing to do.
who do you want to? So there's rumblings I've been reading online, like essentially, Hobbs could be the guy to maybe dethrone Wardlow if that's it in 4 to 6 months or something like that. I think Hobbs has the capability and has the star power to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anytime soon, that's for damn sure.
Agreed.
But it could be.
Agreed.
And then Wardlow move on to the World Championship and dethrone MJF.
That's perfect timing, right?
Right.
I mean, because one of the things I continue to latch onto with Wardlow is that, that promo when Punk first got injured, right? When Punk first had to be interim champ, and how he wasn't. Wardlow said, "I'm not coming after an interim title. I want to come after the real deal, baby."
Yeah, the ring,
right?
Yeah.
So that to me, the dust is going to settle in the world title picture by the time Wardlow ends up moving on from the TNT Championship. More than likely, his arch nemesis MJF will be the champion. Be perfect, right?
Maybe we'll see that all out next year.
I would love, and the reason why I'm behind that idea too a lot, right, is going back is I want to see Wardlow's title reign now take it to another level, right? With Joe being there, I want to see, like we talked about, I want to see some hoss battles, bro. I want to see Wardlow step in the ring, toe to toe. Okay, I've seen him beat Jay Lethal. I've seen him powerbomb Mark Sterling. I can't tell you how many times, right? I want to see Wardlow go against some of these big fellas in this company, right? I want to see 2 bulls going at each other. So if that leads to he puts down a couple guys, right? Wardlow puts down a few guys. It leads to a program with him and Hobbs. I am all in on that, bro.
Especially the way Hobbs is carrying himself on the mic.
I mean, and again, Wardlow trying to powerbomb Hobbs with the power with the spine busters on Wardlow. I mean, that you just think about the visual of those 2 freaks.
The ring's gonna explode.
I'm in, dude. And again, that would be a great way to transition. I think Hobbs could be a great TNT champion. He's clearly building his character to a point where I think he could go. I think that he could be a champ. I really do. So no, man, I'm all for it.
Hobbs.
Where does Ricky Starks go from here?
That's one of the we always try to predict it, and it is hard. You don't see something, but then it just totally works.
Yeah.
I mean, who are top heels right now?
AEW does a lot of that where it kind of out of nowhere you get something thrown your way. So it's hard for us to predict.
Sooner, I mean, I hope he gets in a mini feud with MJF eventually.
How many people do we want to have a feud with MJF?
Well, anyway,
Starks and MJF would be great though, because again, from a flamboyancy, a character work perspective, he would not back down from MJF. He'd absolutely be able to hang on the mic.
What about, is there any heels you want him to conquer so we can see the growth and see Starks start to pick up momentum as a babyface, which it can be harder sometimes as a babyface? That's something to ponder for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just throwing something out there, but I'm trying to think of people who don't have a program going on, right? That I think could be an interesting foil to Starks. I think he would work really well with Miro, right? Miro is a guy who doesn't really have a ton going on at the moment. Miro has played a lot too. He's talked a lot about over the course of his career about how his neck being his Achilles heel, so to speak. Ricky Starks, he's had issues with his neck in the past. And you talk about Miro's finishing move, the visual of him locking him in, right? Locking Starks in, could get a lot of sympathy for Starks, right? Like
good point.
Miro locking him in, really retching back on the back and the spine and the neck. That could be a big thing.
That's another hoss versus a smaller guy.
And you are big again. You talk about this a lot, right? For a baby face, it really works when you're going against that bigger, stronger
True.
heel, that intimidating presence. That's one that just comes off the mind. Is there anybody else that I'm maybe missing? QT Marshall in the Factory.
You can always do that. I mean, he already had a little.
He
bit
did have a
of
little
heat
bit
with
of a
that.
skull.
But I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to give him the star power that we want, I mean, you could have a returning Adam Cole and
Yeah.
Ricky Starks,
Ooh.
similar body styles.
Good point.
You know, so
Both
that
super
would work really,
charismatic.
very charismatic. So I think that program with those
That's
would
smart.
be pretty good. So that would elevate Ricky Starks, because we know Adam Cole is, you know, thought of and is a main event kind of guy
Yeah.
in AEW.
Just as Ricky Starks is starting to reach for, like,
so
that's kind of cool too, right?
Yeah.
Just as Ricky Starks gets past Hobbs and starts to focus in on, like, all right, I want gold, starts eyeing that top prize, Adam Cole comes back. That's a good. That's
tries
a
to
good one.
squash
That would
any
work.
growth or
That
anything
would
like
work.
that.
That'd
So I think that would be
absolutely
good.
I like it.
You guys, there's so much more we didn't
Oh
touch
my
on because there's the
gosh.
4 hours of television, but we're going to wrap it up for Saturday night episode of Dynamite Download. Thank you so much for joining
Really
us.
appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All we got to say is, scissor me, Daddy Cray.
You know you're doing it. Do it at home.
Oh, what a week of TV. We can't wait for Dynamite. And we'll chat with you guys all week online, and have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. Scissor Squad out, baby.